Welcome, 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 everyone. Hey, Pasadena. That's a good Pasadena wave. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our 7th annual National Coming Out. Did we put our hands together for that and make some noise? We're so excited to have you here in the city of Pasadena as we celebrate National Coming Out Day. This is a great day, an important day, and for the city of Pasadena to celebrate people living, loving, and living their life, it's an awesome thing.
You've all heard me talk about how special Pasadena is, and we're a special city because we're such an inclusive city, because the people of this city are accepting, inclusive, and very loving of one another. And that's what makes our city the greatest city in the universe. We have great city hall, we have a great stadium, we have a great neighborhoods, but none of those things rival the beauty of the people of this city, and that's what we celebrate today.
Tonight we celebrate the spectrum of our gay and queer community members and the exhilarating, terrifying, pivotal moment that is coming out of the closet. I know for those of you who've had to do that, it's probably either one of the most joyous or the most terrifying experiences looking back on it, especially that first person you finally came out of the closet to. I know for me, it was one of those knee-buckling, blackout moments where you just lose all the blood in your head and you're like, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to get up again, but you do. And that's one of those most important moments of your life. So tonight, I say, some may poke fun at the ever-expanding LGBTQ+ acronym, but for those of us in the community, we recognize that is a very important, colorful spectrum, and that we are ever evolving in understanding the differences in our community. And like I mentioned, for some of us, it may be one of the happiest experiences coming out of the closet. For others, it could mean being ostracized or even shunned, even by the people who you thought you loved the most. For people like me, it was somewhere in between. It was a bit of a mixed bag, and I'm sure that was probably true for all of you as well. But for those of us who have taken that brave step of coming out of the closet, opening that door, sometimes maybe it's just a crack and taking a peek before you go right back in. But ever eventually, coming out of the closet is not just labeling yourself, but affirming your truth, and there's a power in that.
If you'll indulge me in one quick story. So I'm from up north, as people know, but part of my journey in being a lawyer was I worked for the city and county of San Francisco. And I actually went to work there in July of 2004. And why is that important? In July of 2004, our current governor was then the mayor of San Francisco. He decided on Valentine's Day, so February 14th of 2004, to issue marriage licenses. He didn't have any authority to do it. He just did it because it was the right thing to do. He got challenged. It went straight to the California Supreme Court. The California Supreme Court, a lot of people might not remember this history, but the California Supreme Court said, you can't do that. You need to, but people had already gotten married. They were lining up. And they said, you have to annul those marriages. You have to give back their marriage fees and tell them it didn't work. So that was in February, March, April timeframe. I get to the city in July when the case comes out. Everyone was so demoralized. They're like, who's going to tell these people they're no longer married? The new guy. So that was my job. I had the awful job of telling, I think it was like 1,586 couples that they were no longer married. It was terrible. So how do you turn lemons into lemonade? I looked at the situation. I thought about it. I worked with the teams. We said, why don't we do this? Why don't we tell people that, sadly, it's not anything we want, the city wants. The city wants you to be married, but they're not allowing us. But the fight hasn't finished. So you're entitled to your fees, or we're going to create what we call the Same-Sex Marriage Litigation Fund. And you can donate your money for the fight. And almost everybody did. We raised about $800,000 that then prepared us for the subsequent fight that went in front of the California Supreme Court. And who remembers what happened there? They okayed same-sex marriage in California. And then what happened? It grew from there, and then you had 7 years ago. So I look back at 2004 and the awful task I had to annul marriages to today, where we're celebrating a whole different world. It's only been 18 years, but it's been a hell of an 18 years. So congratulations to everybody for the fight. Congratulations on this day. Congratulations on celebrating equality and inclusion.
Well, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here to celebrate equality in this great city of Pasadena. I'm fully supportive of everyone here, and I just am grateful to serve on this city council. And so I appreciate everyone that's here, and let's continue the good fight.
Quiero cantar este son a mi tierra mexicana, a mi raza tricolor, gente hispana, sangre indiana, pueblo honor y de valor y de grande corazón, que a lo mismo he puesto un gallo que le canta un gran amor. Viste ese traje de charro en agua de lentejuela, sobre la frente un sombrero, bajo el brazo una guitarra, para cantar serenata y robarle el corazón, en una noche de plata decirle cosas de amor.
We are Mariachi Arcoiris de Los Angeles, and we are the world's first LGBTQ plus mariachi. Muchas gracias, thank you. For those of you who don't speak Spanish, arcoiris in our name means rainbow. So we are the Los Angeles Rainbow Mariachi. And the person who just sang, her name is Natalia Melendez, and she is the first trans woman in the history of mariachi. Give it up for her, please. Thank you. All by herself, she's making history, and of course, alongside with Mariachi Arcoiris. So, briefly, I just want to talk a little bit about, my name. My name is Carlos Samaniego. I am the director and founder of Mariachi Arcoiris, and I want to talk to you a little bit as to why I created this group. So, a long time ago, when I was a younger musician playing with several professional mariachis in Los Angeles and in New York, I encountered a lot of discrimination and bullying because I'm an openly gay man, and the people that I worked with at the time especially were from different parts of Mexico, small towns, and so they really weren't used to working with anybody who was openly gay, right? And so there was like a little bit of a conundrum for them. What were they going to do with me? And so perhaps they were uncomfortable, I'm not sure, but I was unfortunately, I had to encounter a lot of this bullying and homophobia, discrimination, etc. So over the years, of course, that accumulates, and I thought to myself that there needed to be a safe space for LGBTQ plus mariachi musicians, right? I thought that I wasn't the only one going through this, and that there needed to be a space. So I decided to create Mariachi Arcoiris for the Los Angeles for that reason, to create a haven for LGBTQ plus mariachi musicians so that we can rehearse our music, perform our beautiful mariachi music in an environment that was safe, in an environment where we can be who we are authentically, and we can not only not worry about the bullying and the discrimination, but we can also celebrate who we are.
We've come a long way as a community. Pasadena has made significant strides over the years. Back in 1993, there was a March on Washington for Gay Rights, which commemorated the march the previous year. And Pasadena organized its own local rally on the steps of City Hall, just like this one, where we stand today together. I had the privilege of speaking at that rally, which was as big a thrill in those days as it is for me tonight.
I've known I was gay since I was probably 11 or 12 years old, but growing up in a very strict religious home, with my dad being a pastor and my mother being a pastor's wife and being over the choir and being in church, it was kind of hard for me to ever say that or live in that truth of coming out as a gay man. I went through my whole teenage years and adult years not verbally ever saying coming out to people. I just lived as a gay man, and if people knew, and they didn't. I officially didn't come out until one time my mother and I was having an argument, and she was convincing me that she wanted me to have a child for her. And I believe I was 35 or so, and she wanted me to have a kid. I'm like, Mommy, I'm not having any kids. And I verbally said, Mommy, I'm gay. And that was the first time I ever said to my mother, to her, that I was gay. And that's how I officially came out at 35 years of age. And once I said it, I felt a freeing. What I felt like I now can live in my truth, that my mother knows, and now that and my mother's response was, I know, baby, and I love you, and you live your life the best way you know how, and God loves you, and I do too.
It was about late 2019 when I realized, holy crap, I'm gay. And it was really confusing. And I remember calling one of my best friends and being like, what do I do? And she was like, okay, calm down. I know. And I'm like, you know? She's like, yeah, come on. I was like, oh, well, what do I do? She's like, it's okay. Don't worry. I accept you. And I'm like, okay, cool, but what about my parents? She's like, take your time. You first have to come to terms with yourself. And it was very wise for a child. But a couple months later, I was like, okay, how am I going to tell them? I can't just be like, hi, this is me. So I came up with the genius idea to just buy a pride flag and hang it in my room, and then open the door, tell them to come in, and just be like, surprise. And it worked. They know.
1984. I had just returned from living abroad in Mexico City as an English teacher with my boyfriend from Mexico. We went to live at my parents' apartment for a couple of months, and then we got our own place on 44th Street between 9th and 10 in Manhattan, 2 blocks down from a chorus line. 6th floor walk-up, Tar Beach. West Side Story was filmed 5 blocks away. These are some of the things I remembered. I remember my brother, younger brother, was a cop on the beat, a mounted cop. And he told me he didn't want to catch me doing what the trannies were doing on 9th and 10th Avenue. My parents had invited me over for lunch with a friend of mine. They had me go into the bedroom while my friend was talking with my brother, and my parents asked me if I was gay. They had read all the news that summer that was plastered all over the newspapers. In an instant, I wanted to say no, but I just realized this was my out. This was my opportunity. This is what everybody dreamed of, being able to tell their parents. And I told them, and they said they already knew.
Earlier this year, I came out as gender fluid, which was after them being so accepting of that, then I was just in the car, hey, I'm gender fluid. They're like, okay. Like my best friend once said, first you have to accept yourself before you can worry about other people accepting you.
One quick story. My dad was in the throes of Alzheimer's. And we were at Floridita, the Cuban restaurant. And there was a table of some guys there, and they were flirting with me, and I was flirting with them. And my mother was trying to figure out what was going on. And there is a word that we use for gay people, Latin people use, and it's kind of like a word for butterfly, mariquita, but the same word is used by Cubans for fried plantain chips. So these guys were asking for more fried plantain chips, and the waitress was telling them that she thought that there were enough of those at the table, using the double entendre. They saw me laughing, so they got the idea that I knew what was going on. My mother, who spoke perfect Spanish, I was able to tell her the story. My dad, although born in Puerto Rico, grew up in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. So his Yiddish was better than his Spanish. So he wanted me to translate what was going on. So when we got outside, I looked at him straight in the eye, And I said, well, this is what was going on. These guys were laughing. And I said, and first thing I need to know if you know the word mariquita. And he said, yeah, you. At first, I didn't know if I wanted to be upset. And then I looked into his eyes. And I realized for that 1 or 2 minutes he was back. And we both laughed and laughed and laughed. Such a sweet story. Thank you for letting me share.
I really think for those who are struggling and deciding to come out or not, to understand that we in the LGBTQ+, we're here for you. We love each other, we support each other, and we protect each other. And you will always find an advocate in our community that you can walk you through the process. It's harder for others, it's easier for others, but it's still a step you need to be made so you can be free. Because trying to live inside, it causes depression, it causes suicidal thoughts, it causes anger, and you're acting out on feelings that you wouldn't act out because you can't be your free self. Fly like a butterfly. Be free. God loves you just the way you are.